It's me, Captain. My mommy is the best. Supermom, love you, much. She helps mommy get their smiles back, their giggles back, and their sparkle back. You wait for the straw brush. Get ready for it's super discovery and super strong.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Healing for the Soul podcast. It is your go-to resource for parents and want-to-be parents who strive for success without sacrificing connection and well-being. Each episode delivers actionable strategies and inspiring insights to help you build emotional intelligence and resilience for yourself and for your family. Strengthen relationships with yourself, your partner, and your children. Master parenting as an entrepreneur, even while raising young children. Discover life and parenting hacks that simplify your journey. Explore hypnosis and other healing modalities for a deeper transformation. This podcast isn't just about parenting and a fertility journey. It's about creating harmony, wealth, and alignment in every area of life. Let's get started. This is season 7, and I am your host, Supermom Robin Stoltman. And today's guest is David Homan, and he is the CEO and founder of Orchestrated Connecting, a global network of super connectors focused on impact. He's a recently published author, a classical composer, a startup founder, and an advisor in impact. He chairs the Arthur Miller Foundation, and his classical music can be heard globally. David's work focused on relationship, speed of trust, and on designing intentional and purposeful community. Thank you so much, David, for being here with our audience.
It's such a pleasure, Robin. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I want to know who or what inspired you to create the Orchestrated Connecting?
You know, and thinking of this in the context of your podcast and some of the episodes I've listened to, everything that you find that's purposeful comes from a place of loss and to fill a gap. In my case, since I was 12, I've never felt I really belonged. I got sick then. I was more awkward with my social skills. And everywhere I fit in, I didn't feel I fully fit in because I was in a theater crowd and a jock crowd and a soccer crowd and a history crowd. And by the time I got to New York, where I live now, with a really big focus on impact and philanthropy and all of the rest, I would be in a Broadway world, a Hollywood world, a family office world, a startup founder world, and I never belonged fully in any of it. And then I realized I didn't belong in any of those places because I am a connector. And anyone who's a connector or a self-described super connector means that our passion and our love is to connect people across different worlds, across different communities and interests. And that's when I realized that I didn't fit in anywhere because there wasn't a place for me to fit in. And that's what I built. I built a private global community for connectors, that person who starts a book club, who runs a community, who sits behind the founder of a company, but the reason everyone shows up for the launch is you. And all those people were never fitting in fully to the place they needed to because there wasn't a place solely for them. Now that I've done that, I've built, one of the largest communities of connectors on the planet. I have no competition because everyone who could be my competition has their own network, but they don't have a network for them. And I designed something that was to benefit all the people who benefit others, which in the end has been the most rewarding, like really soul enriching reward I could have.
I love that because there's for me, I've struggled with connecting. All the things you just said. I don't fit into this area. I don't fit into this group. I don't fit into this. So really what you've created is something where entrepreneurs or people in general can just come together and just be like, I don't fit into these boxes, but I fit into this.
Correct. And don't know if everyone listening knows you have a beautiful little 3-month-old sitting on you right now. But the thing that was the distinguishing factor for me was when I started this group, my daughter Eva was 1 years old. And I thought, there's a lot of different ways that people connect. And, if somebody says, hey, I'd have a drink with that person. I went to college with them. If we were stuck in an elevator for 4 hours, I wouldn't go crazy. I thought, okay, but there's lots of people who have been described to me as really great people, and they're not. What was that factor that would be unassailable? And that was, would I leave my kid with you? It's now kids, because I have 2. But that became the rule. If you're going to join my network, you have to be vetted by somebody referring you in to be introduced to me as somebody they would leave my children with. It has been the most profound social experiment. Friends will be at Davos, where I have never been. and probably don't belong. And they'll talk to each other. And they're like, hey, are you part of Orchestrated Connecting? And they'll go, yeah. And then they'll meet somebody else and they'll go, would David leave his kids with you? And then three people meet each other. They instantly trust each other because there's no greater act of service than what you can do to trust somebody with their kids. And that has been like one of the most amazing things in this growth of my network is that every single person by nature has to be high integrity.
I love that so much, especially because you brought in like the parenting part, but then also the integrity, because there's so many people that are missing integrity these days. And that's one of the things that I'm just like, how hard is it? If you're saying you're going to do something, that you do it and you're the same person online as you are in person. It's not that hard, but for a lot of people, it is. And so I wanted to ask, why doesn't the wealth or fame matter in your network?
So it's not the defining characteristic. And that is because I have been around a lot of wealth and fame. I would not leave my kids with a lot of those people. And I have been around people who are the most humble, dedicated, passionate servants in this world. And I would leave my kids around them. And if you're going to build a community to create global impact, as I have, the distinguishing factor can't be the dollars in your bank account, the fact people know you or your title, because that often is what makes people unaccountable to do what they say they're going to do. It makes people unaccountable to others because your reputation is you're famous. Your reputation is you're rich. So when I have people, and I have thousands of people in my network who are or have access to the most powerful, richest, well-known people on this planet, what I'm curating is a network where people trust each other because those wealthy people, those famous people, the person they trust is the one in my network. So it creates a ripple effect of 1 degree. Some of my network, they own sports teams. Their sisters are major Olympian athletes or movie stars. Their dad is a billionaire, and therefore so are they. But when you step into my community or my room, you're an equal because what you're a master at, you're a master at being curious, being vulnerable, building trust. You care about helping other people than yourself, and you happen to be working with Malala on a project. You happen to be giving a sports team a new technology that you just built. You happen to be a Hall of Fame athlete, or you're none of those things, but you're equally valuable.
I think that's really important because, like we said, like you still can build all these different things, but you're still equal importance in all of it, really. And like what you said about like how the money and the fame and that you wouldn't leave your kids with a lot of the people that you've met. And it got me thinking, I'm like, yeah, the way that some people that I've met, because I've met some that are like a billionaire or a millionaire, and I wouldn't want to leave my kids with them necessarily because I'm like, the way they come across that business is more important than their children. Some of them have children, and I'm like, that's your problem. Because like me, I was thinking about it last night, like as I enter more into the speaking world of things, I'm like, there's not a lot of speakers, if any, that actually have their children on stage with them, especially like if they're in my group where they're older, but they've got children. I've got one that they're taking care of like I am right now, but they leave them off out of the room. And it's like, but your kids, at least for me, this is my why I do what I want to do, because I want
Mhm.
other people to be doing the exact same thing, because it's like, we're human. Like the most important job you have is think you're humans. That's like my thing is we've got so many things backwards in society, like what you just said. It's like, it doesn't matter like if you're a millionaire or billionaire or just a regular person, but it's like, who would you leave your kids with? Because I'm like, when you ask that question, it's still like going in my mind of like, there's a lot of people that I know that don't have any money that I would never want to leave my kids with. That's why I didn't even put my kids in daycare, because I'm like, I trust me with them, but I don't trust everybody around me with them. If that makes
But
sense.
if I were, it makes sense. But if I were to come to you and I say, you should meet my friend Jay.
Yeah.
I've known him for 8 years. We've worked on these projects. He's part of my network, and I would leave your kids with him. What type of first call are you going to have with that person?
It would
And my
not be
reputation, right?
sales. It would not be sales
No.
and sell me stuff. It would be like, hey, I'm a parent. I trust you. I get life's a mess. I'm just
But the
saying, like,
guy
that's
runs
my
a
take.
massive empire in media that can produce podcasts and movies and documentaries and all of this. He's successful in life, but to me, he is first that integrity. So my
Yeah.
experiment was, two things. What happens when you put the people who are the ecosystem builders in the same room? What happens when you look at the nature of power? Because unfortunately, wealth, fame, all this does matter. Power is what rules this world. Power is what guides everything. Whatever the politics are, whatever the economics are, it's always been a balance of. My hack has been when you put the people of trust who have access to that power with each other. Now I know 10 years in, and this is why I wrote my book, Orchestrated Connection. It's why I've launched my startup called Soar Connect. It's why I'm scaling my network globally, despite the fact I don't monetize the network itself. I don't charge membership. I don't get sponsors for my events. It's all done at cost. It's because of what I've seen as the long-term result, what we gain when the most connected people get out of their bubble into somebody else's, and then the thing that they were looking for, somebody else is looking for. And that can be, as it has in my world, monumental change, because one meeting to one meeting is one thing. Purposeful community, people who are intentional together, this is what has changed the world. Every movement from women's suffrage to civil rights to whatever it might be, those movements are all intentional communities.
Yeah, they very much are intentional. I like that you use the word intentional because it has so much meaning behind it that I think a lot of people are just doing that day-to-day thing, like the networking groups. I've been to so many networking groups, and it's like people are there just to sell you stuff. And it's like you should build relationships. And it sounds like what you're doing with Orchestrating Connection is really building relationships. And so
Building relationships, teaching the people who are at the top of the game how to hone it. But then with that, telling everyone it's possible, right? Like, why do most networking events suck? Because people don't focus on who's in the room. They focus the fact that they're there and they brought the room together. People don't curate small groups or figure out who you're supposed to meet, because what matters is they had the event. Anyone who's more intentional in how they curate people, more intentional in how they introduce people, that's why their events are better than others. It's why their communities are stronger, because the more you're intentional about everyone meeting the right people from being part of a community or going to an event, you're actually prescribing the outcome, which is why you go. We don't go to an event to randomly meet people at a bar, talk to somebody while waiting for the bathroom, and hope that one of these conversations bears fruit. We hope that we're going to be valued, seen, and heard. And the expectation is that if we're going to spend our time, there'll be a value for that time. So for me and all the community builders in my network, I make everyone realize that's a sacred responsibility. If I'm going to take your time, if somebody's going to take the time to listen to us on this podcast, then they should gain value from it that was worth their time. Or why talk? Why engage? Why push things out there? And so for me, there needs to be an accountability to what convening is that doesn't exist in the way that it should. And that's for me been my mission for 10 years now. And a lot of the stuff in my book, these are, the principles that my co-author Noah Askin and I discuss. These are not profound rocket science principles. They are more sophisticated than just, don't eat alone or just give or take. Because what we found through my own practice for a decade of doing this with super connectors is if you're not curious and you're not vulnerable when you meet somebody, you can't build trust. And if you build trust only amongst people who look like you and talk like you do not gain anything, because you're not adding diversity to your network. And if you don't follow up building that trust and that curiosity with simply being gracious and generous and offering to help and then doing what you say you're going to do, you don't build the relationship. But everyone can. It's not that hard to ask a question when somebody asks a question of you. If somebody says, here's what happened to me, don't respond back with a pitch on your business. And when you embrace a world where you give without expectation, more comes back to you, as long as you're demonstrating your value as you give.
I appreciate everything that you just said. I really truly do, because it's like I've been looking for people like you in this world, because it's like we need that community. That I'm not here just to sell you stuff, because that's why I quit a lot. That's why I quit all the networking stuff. I'm like, what's the point? And then like the podcast for me, it's like I'm putting value out there. At least I believe that I am, and that I'm helping people, because I'm like, that's the reason why I'm still doing it, is because I'm like, I want people to be seen, heard, and valued. And I want people to know that there's other methods out there that they may not be even aware of that can help them. Because how many times you go somewhere, like for a doctor, for example, they give you a pill, but they don't help teach you like what's going on and like what's inside. They don't teach you like how to get rid of depression. They don't teach you how to get rid of anxiety. They don't teach you those things. They just said, here's a pill and call it done. Go talk to somebody and call it done. And it's like, but what's the real reason? That's where I'm like, this makes a difference in this area. And it sounds like you're making a huge impact and what you're doing as well by like you're vetting people, you're making that community more tighter, like having the rules. And like what you said, it's, are you going to do what you said that you would, in that. And like, I think that part is huge, especially like for those of us who have kids. I've got 8 living ones. The oldest is 10, the youngest is 3 months. But it's like some of us, like me, I'm just like, just give me a couple days just to be on the safe side. But I know that I can get it done. And people make excuses when they've got it easy with less than 3 kids or less. I'm like, that's easy. Like how many
Well, I
people?
applaud you for that many because I juggle three in my home, and that is enough.
Yeah,
But again, everyone comes from a different walk of life, a different set
they
of
do.
circumstances.
Yeah,
But everyone wants to not lead a life of quiet desperation. The problem is most of us lack the courage to change our lives because we fear the rejection or the failure more than we can see the success. And what I've studied now, because my world, right? My world might seem foreign to certain people. My world is interacting with people who are some of the richest on the planet, who are Hollywood stars, who are exited founders, whose friends are major politicians. That's the world I built. But to have a purposeful community for what you're after, there's a million and one variations of that. You can have great value just being a parent on this planet. You can have great value working in the philanthropic sector. You can have the supreme value just being a teacher. All of that, every action that we take, what we fail to understand is we're putting all of our time and all of our money into one thing besides our own family, which is building relationships. And the more that I could have people understand that everyone can have the community around them be more purposeful, the more it makes it easy to take the step, the risk you need to take for what you actually want, because no one wants to do this alone, but no one wants to do this with people who don't believe in them. And therefore, we're halted often making excuses for what's around us when what I would say is we are in charge of that. We're in charge of who our friends are, who our colleagues are, who we interact with, who we lean on. And until we understand that is our agency, our responsibility, many people live that life where the other quote I love to do is rage against the dying of the night, when what we really want is not what would be the two I've given you are both from either Dylan Thomas or Henry Thoreau. What we really want is simply to feel like our life matters. And that's why I say, like, this is why how you can orchestrate it. You can take the different instruments in your life, the different people, and you can find a common resonance and you can draw a line in the sand to be unapologetic. I will only have people in my network I would leave my kids with. I have people that people would salivate to interact with, and I don't invite them to what I do because they are not the type of people that see eye to eye the way I want everyone in my purposeful community to see.
I appreciate that a lot because it takes a lot to be able to have that boundary set in place, like what you've done. And I applaud you for that. So I also want to know, like, when you're doing this work that you're doing where you're connecting and you're putting up these boundaries, how difficult was it to start? Like when the rest of the world is just doing, hey, I just met you, let's sell something, instead of like what we'd like the typical networking part of
It
it.
took a really long time. It happened in a place of abject despair, horror for my life, worrying about being able to feed myself. I was running a charity based in New York City, which is among the most amazing and cutthroat cities to ever try to build a career in. And a housing bubble recession, Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme. I had to network differently to survive. And instead of going out with my hand out, going, please help me, I tried that for a little bit. It didn't work. So I started to sit with people who told me no, they would not donate to the charity I ran. No, they would not take a meeting. They were busy. And I would turn around and they go, well, if you're too busy to take the meeting, is there anything I can help you with? If you're not going to give to me, is there a charity you'd like to give to? I can help you meet. If your business is having this challenge. Can I help try to find the lawyer you need to talk to? And I asked enough questions, but a real generous spirit that people told me what they needed. And then I started to match those needs one to the other. It took several years to get this right. It took over 5 years to realize what I built. Now I run a global network on fumes, but the ripple effect is this was more efficient and better for how I could operate because I'm an event planner. I'm a public speaker. These things are easy for me, and my kids are going to work their first event for me coming up this spring.
Awesome.
Greet people the way I greeted people when I ran events for my mom when I was a child. But what I've realized is, and this is partly why I wrote the book,
Yeah.
you don't have to take that long. I had to figure out what was different in the approach for me that was honestly wrong in most people's approaches. And what was wrong was I stayed in conversations when I was vulnerable or curious about somebody, and they didn't respond back with any curiosity or vulnerability back. Now I just walk away from those conversations. I went to a family office event. This guy asked me how I was doing. I told him I was having a hard time. He goes, "Why?" I go, "My dad's in hospice." He's like, "Been there. So what business do you run?" I walked away, sat down with somebody else. I was like, "I'm sorry, I have to keep checking my phone. My dad's in hospice." And he goes, "Listen, if you have to step out, I'll cover for you." 2 hours later, he checked on me. 6 hours later, he checked on me. He asked for my number that night. I gave it to him. And every day for 3 weeks after, he checked in on me. Don't you want to talk to that person? Because
Yeah.
that's what Mike became in my life. And the other guy, his name is Dennis. I don't care about Dennis. And I realized you had to draw that line. And the line that people don't draw is thinking if they just give it more effort, if they just go out with that person one more time, it's going to work. The answer is it didn't. Because the person who's going to respond to you to spark that, they're going to respond when you're courageous enough to be vulnerable. And when you've asked enough questions about them, let's see if they ask one back.
I agree. I like that approach a lot. Especially like one of the things that I've been told is like nobody cares. Like when I'm posting certain things. And it's like to me, vulnerability is what makes me human. It makes all of us human. And it's like being able to share that like it's made it positive, like you've made it positive. But then sometimes like what you shared about like your dad being in hospice, it's like the one just straight to business. And it's like that's not the way to approach somebody. That's like what the other guy did in your,
Yep, and
you know?
it's a short-term approach.
Yeah.
Because I was not born with a network. My network includes Super Bowl winning football stars,
Yeah.
WNBA stars, celebrities, billionaires, all I've organically met because somebody says, "You should meet David. He's really valuable to me. I think you guys should talk with each other." And again, this took a long time, but I didn't inherit any of this. I didn't walk into a world despite being a white man where that was my privilege, where I had any of this. And so when people talk about, there needs to be other ways to network, to build relationships, like for me, this is the way, because what that person who really wants to talk about their business is looking for is a deal or an investment. And I have access to thousands of those people, but those people trust me. They don't trust that person who dismissed me when I said my dad's in hospice.
Yeah, that doesn't help at all. How long ago was that? If you don't mind me
Oh,
asking.
my dad passed December 1st of last year. So it's very recent. He was 87. He lived a long, beautiful life, but the last 18 months of his life, and especially the last 2 months, it's hard. Not was, it is.
Yeah.
But I had to move forward. I had to move forward with my life, with the work from my book, from my community, from the startup, everything that I'm glad you've given me a little floor to talk about because I believe that we as a society can do something greater. And one of the things my dad taught me is actually the opposite. He taught me the power of connection and relationships because he chose to use none of them he'd built for himself for me. And so I had to start from scratch despite him being a celebrity professor at a major university. Anyone who would know the phrase "Go Gators" will know where I grew up. And in that world of not having it, I had to build it. In learning how to build it in hard times, I ended up building something that is the supreme value for me on this planet, which is the fact I have thousands of people who trust me and love me and want to help me.
Yeah.
I have hundreds of people checking on me every week how I'm doing. Imagine if you have a loss like that, how it feels when it's not one person checking in every 3 months, but an entire world around you. I built all this for the purpose of helping those people. They've helped me. And if that's anything to leave anyone listening with, there's a strategy for doing this. There's a reason to do it this way. It can make your life more lucrative. It can give you better safety and security. If you're after fame or fortune, it can help you achieve all of that. But everyone I've met who has ever achieved that, what they really valued was the people who were with them along the way. That's what actually the journey was.
I appreciate it. And it sounds like your dad was the major part of that journey for you in a way what he was able to teach you.
He was the heart and soul of it, completely incapable as a human to manage his life. So I learned from my mother, the other half, how to run a business, how to run an event, all this. But the combination of them left me with this unique skill set of being able to be on a stage, being able to execute an event, but most importantly, being able to make sure people also feel heard, feel celebrated. And that's what my world is just continually orchestrating connections for people. And now speaking about this as widely as I can.
I love that. I really truly do. I think your mission and the heart of what you're doing is very important. especially with how the world is, you know, and in a way it's been going. It's like we need more human, more of that meaning. Like as you were speaking, talking about your dad, which I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I don't know what it's like, and I'm not going to pretend, but I can imagine that it's hard.
It is something
You know, that's
profoundly different, more than
going through.
anyone could experience or know. It just hits you differently than another loss. But I appreciate you saying that. And, but I just want to say back, like, I appreciate the work that you do. Like, I was grateful to be accepted to be on this, but grateful for the fact for so many years now that you have put your heart forward and been unapologetic about who you are, where your life is, and what you're after. There are more of us. We just need to ask for what we need in a way that helps others not only feel heard, but helps us hear them.
I would agree. Because, like, when you had said about, like, for the road being lonely, that's what I have felt. Like, the entire time. Like, you can be around all these different places, and it's like, I feel so alone. It's like, how can it be an entrepreneur? I've got family, I've got husband, I've got kids, but it's like, I still feel alone. Because, like, nobody gets what I'm going through. Because it's like, you want to help other people. Like, my heart is to help other people so much. Sometimes it's detrimental to myself. And I've noticed that, but it's like I still have that drive of like I want to help people succeed, because to me it's like if you're succeeding then I can succeed. Like that's the way
Hmm.
I look at it. Like we should be helping each other, not tearing each other down at all whatsoever. And that's the part in business that I do not like at all, is that when people are like it's all about me, and it's like no, the whole purpose of your business should be to help somebody else, to help them succeed, and then you'll succeed naturally on your own. You know, like it's like the byproduct of it. And I love that's what you're building. I truly do.
Thank you.
So I just want to know, like, what's the best way for audience to get in contact with you? They want to learn more.
I'd say, Robin, I make myself pretty easy to be found, with the caveat, unless you're intentional in connecting with me. I lost that thing called time a few years ago
Oh, yeah.
between children and startup and book and speaking and everything else. Primary world is orchestrated connecting, and that is orchestratedconnecting.com. If you Google any variation of that and the word connecting, or Connection. That's the book that came out, became a USA Today bestseller this past August. I make my world visible so people can understand that if you take these practical steps, you can get to a better place personally and professionally. And so it all stems from the start of this, which was the heart of it, which was the global community that I built now very carefully over the past decade.
I love it so much. I just want to, I really truly am thankful that I've had you on the show, David. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. And I don't know if anyone listening knows you, but I think there are very few people who can juggle a small kid with such grace and stay focused and on topic. So when you say that you're a super mom, I think that I had a friend who was like, well, I'm going back into the workforce. My 5 kids are grown. I'm not sure what I can do. I was like, what can't you do? There are very few people that can multitask, but having to multitask with yourself and 5 creatures, that is a supreme skill set in most jobs. We just don't see it as marketable. So I just want to point that out because I'm grateful for your intention and focus while you navigated what is now a beautifully sleeping child, but one that needed to squirm the moment you needed to respond to me.
Well, I appreciate it very much. I just wish that more people would take that into account, because, yeah, that's why I said, like, when 5 people, then you're going into workplace, you can pretty much do anything. That's why I'm like,
Oh yeah,
more than 3 gives you gives you a different skill set. That's all I was gonna say. Totally
it
different
does. It
skill
does.
set, and it's a blessing to have. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me on. I look forward to being in touch soon. And thank you everyone for listening.
As always, I just want to thank you for your time and energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Healing for the Soul podcast wherever you get your downloads, you're listening to your podcasts, and keep coming back for more episodes. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast, which also can be found on YouTube.